Hey guys, Dino Waifu here with another commentary video. Apologies for the TF2 gameplay in the background again. A little new to YouTube, the whole spectrum of that, so I didn't want to grab any clips, as I don't want to get copyrighted and such, you know. So, yeah, now that that's out of the way, let's get started. Alright guys, so this video is going to be about the Jurassic Park franchise as a whole. I'm going to be analyzing all 5 movies, and in my opinion, why I think the first 3 are better than the next 2. It's going to be broken up into 4 parts. So, yeah. The first part is going to be about my kind of appreciation for the series, where my history with it, and just me explaining where I started watching the movies and when. The second part is going to be about more realistically, it's going to be my reasoning for liking the first 3 more than the fourth and fifth. And the third part is going to be about the Jurassic Park franchise, or the 4th and 5th. My major issues with the 4th and 5th, and why I don't like them as much as the first through 3rd. And the 4th and final part, which is the most, I'm not going to say the most important, but I think it's the most critical to this discussion, is my opinion on why I think that the dislike and hatred, more dislike than hatred, of course, of the first 3 movies, or more realistically, the second and third movie, is not wrong, but it's a little misguided. Okay, so let's get started with the discussion. So where I got started with the Jurassic Park franchise was when I was really young. I watched the first part. The first part of the movie, where they take the raptor in, and it bumps the cage, and the guy falls in, and it pulls him into the cage. That was where I started watching the films. As a child, I never made it past that scene, because it's if you really watch it, it's pretty traumatic for a child to watch that scene. It's intense, it's scary, the works. Now, as a fan, the next time I ever saw Jurassic Park, it was Jurassic Park 3. And I remember it scared me, but looking back on it, I really enjoyed it. It was terrifying. It kept me up at night, but something about it just clicked with me, It made me enjoy it, even though I was scared. I don't know what it is about these things, but for some reason, I'm one of those people that's like, I get something scares me as a child, and then when I look back on it, I'm like, it wasn't really that bad. I really enjoyed it. So that's kind of my history with the franchise. I after kind of looking back on the franchise and watching the first movie all the way through, I grew this appreciation for the series, and it's become one of my favorite franchises, honestly. Which is not an uncommon thing, honestly. Like, the Jurassic Park franchise it's famous, obviously, for that reason. So, that's the first section, just my history with the series. So now we're on to part 2, which is my reasoning for liking the first through 3rd more than the 4th and 5th. Realistically, I feel like I should rephrase that, because it's not me saying, oh man, this is why I like the movies better, because that's more the third part. This part is more realistically based around why I personally don't think that the second and third movies are that bad compared to the first one, which will then be kind of implemented more into the next part, or the 4th and final part, more accurately. So this is my reasons for liking the second and third. So when it comes to the second and third movie, I feel like they get a bad rap because most people say like, "Oh, they're bad movies," and "Oh, they're not super great," and man, they're not like the first movie," and that's understandable from the perspective of like they're different movies, so they weren't what people were expecting. But I personally have always liked the second and third movies. I like the scene in the second movie where the main characters are kind of dangling over the cliff. Ian Malcolm and all them. They're all dangling over this cliff, about to die. Then the T-Rexes are attacking them. It's a fun time. And in the third movie, I don't know. I've always liked the third movie. I never really got why everyone hated it. I know it's not like the third one, and the acting's kind of hokey on a lot of the characters, and they're not super interesting. But if you really look at it from the perspective of it's not the same movie as the first one, or the second one even, then you get this appreciation for the series that you wouldn't normally have. The second and third movies are not like the first one. That's true. The acting isn't as good for a lot of the side characters. The main characters, you don't have the charm of Ian Malcolm in the third one. You don't have the cool, badass ruggedness of Alan Grant in the second one. You don't get these things in both movies. Like in the first movie, you had that. You had both. But in this one, you don't have both. It's one of those things that like it's nice in the first one, but you kind of have to look at it from a different perspective. So realistically, that's why I like those ones. As for 4 and 5, I want to get this misconception out of the way because I have a feeling if this video does get popular, this will be a common thing thrown around, is that you don't like 4 and 5, which is completely wrong. I like the movies. I just don't think that they deserve this level of praise that I feel like a lot of people give them. For all those people that say, "Oh, well, Jurassic World is just a repeat of Jurassic Park, just like Episode 7 of Star Wars is a repeat of Episode 4. That is completely wrong. And it's not because I'm trying to be like, "Oh, you're wrong, and I'm right." It's just, Jurassic, yes, you can say, "Oh, the plot is the same," which is, you can make that argument. But from the perspective of as a whole, that is not the case. The fourth movie in the Jurassic Park franchise is very different. Yes, it's a bunch of dinosaurs break out of a theme park, but for the most part, it's a different feeling, a different atmosphere. It's more about containing the threat than surviving. So yeah. Now, I guess we'll go to the next part then. Okay, time for my major issues of the fourth and fifth movies. This one's not going to be super long, so I'm just going to put a little filler in here of me explaining that it's not super long. So bear with me. So my main issues with the fourth and fifth movies are the fact that it almost seems like the fourth movie specific. This is more about the fourth movie than the fifth movie, because the fifth movie doesn't really have this issue. It kind of does. I'll get into the fifth movie in a second, but my main issues with it. But the fourth movie, the reason I don't like it as much is because the main plot of the movie seems shoehorned in, at least a little bit. If you know what I mean? Like, it's something that probably shouldn't have happened. Like, the main characters don't have a safeguard for the dinosaurs. They don't have any way of stopping them if they break out. Which is weird, because there was a park that failed before. Do you think they'd have some kind of safeguard? As for the movies as a whole, there's not really a lot of suspense in them. There's a lot of them kind of running around and being like, "Oh no, where are the kids? Oh no, what's going on?" And yes, that's a scary situation, but at the same time, you have to think about it. In the first through third movies, there was no safety, hardly ever. The characters were always running around, and whether they were fighting a giant dinosaur or a bunch of raptors, there was always a lurking threat. That presence is missing from the fourth and fifth movies. There's not this looming threat in the background. As for the fifth movie, in its general issue, it was mostly this seemingly shoehorned in part of the main characters. Like, the only one I really cared about was Owen Grady, and to an extent Claire, because the other characters, as much as I thought they were interesting, they didn't really hold any value to me. The two side characters, specifically, they didn't seem to have any personality, really, other than, I like dinosaurs, and I am a tech nerd. That was their only personality. So, those are my issues, and time for the final part, which I have to rush, because I ran out of space. So, bear with me. So this is the fourth and final part, the most important part. And it's me defending 2 and 3 from all the hate they get. So I'm going to break down the argument that people give me really quickly. And that's, they're not as good as the first films, thus they're not that great. And, they're just mediocre films in general. But here's the argument I'm going to make for that. They're different movies. Stop trying to say they're the same movie and they should be held up to the same standard as Jurassic Park. They're not the same movie. That's all I'm going to say on that. Just think about it a little differently next time you think about it, okay? Alright. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and other stuff like that. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your year and summer.